John McGuirk was a corporate high-flyer all his life, but retirement didn't sit well for this 67-year-old. So he went from a sales and marketing executive to making coffee and serving cake in a Michel's Patisserie franchise.
Here we are, sir.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. It's tough, doing 60, 70 hours a week, early morning starts, late night finishes, pressure on the family.
John had a rocky start, but has now built up his franchise store to a 5-star rating.
In the first 6 months I was sort of making a lot of mistakes. Waste is a big problem that you've got to watch in fresh food. I guess I made some mistakes with staff as well, but overall, after 12 months, I'm confident now that I'm on a second plane, if you like, and going forward.
And joining us now to talk about the challenges of franchising, our finance editor, Ross Greenwood. Good morning again. Are you comfortable? Is there anything that you need there?
I can honestly tell you there's not too many challenges here, Steve. It's all right.
Now, listen, franchising is one of the fastest growing sectors of the Australian business community, but it's also one of the most troubled, right?
It is, and there's been difficulties over a long period of time, mainly caused by the relationship and the contracts which the franchisor and the franchisee, that is the person who actually goes and buys the franchise, the relationship that they have. And the contract is actually such an important thing because it does determine ultimately, number one, where you can get your supplies from in many cases, and number two, the way in which your business can develop. And so that's one of the keys that people have got to watch if they're actually going to go out and buy a franchise. On the face of it, this should be a great area to get into, because the success rates of franchises are so much greater than what they are for other small businesses. But as I say, that sometimes can be a very troubled relationship between the person who buys the franchise and the person who sells the franchise.
Okay, so Ross, how do you come up with the right franchise for you?
Well, first of all, you've got to look at your own skills. If you're in a job and you suddenly say, well, I'd like to buy a job, in other words, go and buy the franchise, you've got to make certain that you've got skills that are adaptable to that. Because it's not good enough to simply say, well, I like coffee, I think I'll go and set up a coffee shop. It's more a case of saying, well, it's a case that I think I've got the skills to deal with the public, to actually make the coffee, to deal with the suppliers, to manage that business and to promote it in a way that I'm happy with. And then secondly, to find the organisation that will sell you the franchise that actually fits your aims and dreams as well. So it might very well be you end up in a franchise that really is quite out of your normal field, but which actually your set of skills matches that particular business as well.
And in terms of investment, the amount of money you've got to put in, I mean, they don't come cheaply.
No, in many cases, it's many hundreds of thousands of dollars to actually buy a franchise. And one of the tricks about this is, a lot of people who, say, for example, get made redundant and get a large lump sum of money, people who retire early and again get large lump sums of money, are encouraged to buy franchises, to buy the job. But the difficulty is, remember, that if that fails, then your retirement income literally goes out the window as well. So people have got to be very cautious about going into it and making certain that it's not all of their money that they're putting into the franchise. Otherwise, if it does fail, really they do compromise their lifestyle quite significantly.
It's interesting though, because if you've got a franchise, you're 2.5 times less likely to fail than if you go out and on your own into small business.
Yeah, that's true, and that's one of the reasons why franchises are such a good way to do it. Because remember, you've got the collective ability of the franchise. You've got somebody centrally marketing it for you. You've got somebody centrally buying your goods for you. So under those circumstances, it should really add to the protection which you've got by being in a franchise. So under those circumstances, look, it's a great way to get into a small business, so long as you get into the right one, and so long as you make certain, absolutely, that the contract is something which you are happy with and that you understand fully before you commit to it.
And in terms of understanding it fully, understand how easy or difficult it is to get out of the contract, as well as getting into it.
So true, Steve, because quite clearly one of the issues here will be what happens when I wish to sell the franchise. And so there's a whole lot of issues that surround that as well, because the one thing you don't want to do is take on a significant legal risk that you may be sued by the actual franchisor as well. The other thing to watch also is territory. Watch out who's around you, because quite clearly the franchisor is trying to sell as many franchises as they can, and of course they'll be trying to encroach on your territory the whole time. So you need some sort of safeguards about that as well.
Yeah, so it's not a bad way to go, but be aware of the pitfalls.
Yeah, exactly. But I have to say, look, sitting here in a franchise, it's actually quite a comfortable thing to be a customer as well.
All right, well, look, I'll have a cappuccino with a high collar and a couple of hot cross buns.
Fantastic. They're on their way straight back to you, Steve.
Thank you, Ross.